Well, in fact, as I mentioned earlier, the ISO 9001 family of standards started life as a quality assurance standard. So we had the ISO 9001 set of requirements for quality assurance for suppliers to be able to demonstrate to their customers that they could understand and meet their requirements. It became quite clear, though, in the early 1990s that in order to ensure the longevity of the ISO 9000 family, it needed to be more wide philosophy than just meeting requirements and writing procedures. And so ISO set up a group to develop a series of quality management principles on which we could base the future of the ISO 9000 standards. These were not things that were invented by ISO or by ISO's technical committee. What they actually did was look at all the various management system, quality management philosophies that had evolved over the years and try to condense those into a set of core principles, core beliefs that we can incorporate into ISO 9001 and can give us general guidelines when we don't have a specific prescriptive requirement to address a particular situation. And I think when we talk about quality management to senior management, to board members of our company, they don't want to know that clause 6.2.1 of ISO 9001 requires to do this, this and this. In fact, if we try to explain it to senior management in those terms, very soon we will see their eyes start to glaze over and we'll be losing their attention. But if we can explain that all of this is about understanding who are our customers, what do our customers want, that customer focus, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes, about leadership, about getting the involvement and the buy-in and the commitment of all those who are involved in the organization, the so-called employee commitment and the employee involvement and engagement. If we can do that, understanding the processes that are needed, not just individual silos, individual departments working in isolation, but everybody working together with the objective of providing customers with good conforming products and services. So that's the fourth quality management principle. The fifth quality management principle relates to continually looking for ways to do things better. Is there a better way, a faster, cheaper, better, more effective way of doing what we are doing? That we know as improvement. Improvement can be small step, continual improvement, Kaizen, or it may be breakthrough improvement. It may be innovation. And then finally, the seventh quality management principle, as we know them today, is the quality management principle of beneficial relationships with other parties. It may be customer-supplier relationships, it may be relationships with joint venture partners and others, to ensure that we can provide a seamless experience for our mutual customers when they buy, or in some cases just receive, the products and services that we provide. So those quality management principles, originally there were 8. In the 2012 time frame, we actually condensed 2 of the principles into a single principle. That was the system approach and the process approach. We decided that they were essentially talking about the same thing. And so those original 8 principles that were developed in the mid-1990s became condensed into what we now know as the 7 quality management principles. And they form the basis for the whole of the ISO 9001 requirements. It's very difficult to identify a requirement in ISO 9001 that can't be related back to one of those principles. And those principles make sense. It's not something that ISO has invented to make life difficult for people who are implementing the standards. We understand the principles behind the requirements in the standard, then we have a much better chance of implementing the standard in a proactive, useful, value-adding way within your organizations. And it's that approach to adding value that is core to J-VAC's philosophy. Of course, you have to do everything that the standard requires. And of course, you have to demonstrate to the auditor, and the auditor has an obligation to ensure that you are doing everything that the standard requires. But it's also important that you understand why you're doing that you can see the benefits to meeting the requirements of the standard for your organization. So over the course of the next few videos, we'll be looking at each of those quality management principles in a little bit more detail.